Hello everyone, my name is Manohar. I'm a data science trainer and consultant. Today I'm going to session. Firstly, I will explain the installation procedure of NumPy. After that, I will explain what is NumPy and why NumPy. After that, I will explain the advantages over the list and the array attributes and constructing array and indexing and slicing. And after that, I will explain the NumPy data types. There are special data types NumPy have. I will explain those things, and in the end of the session I will explain about NumPy operations. Right, now let me explain the installation procedure of NumPy. If you want to install this NumPy into a directory, just open your command prompt, and inside the command prompt just type pip install and click on enter. Then the NumPy library will be installed into your system. And if you are facing any kind of difficulties to install this NumPy library, then use this code python 3 -m pip install NumPy and click on enter. Then the NumPy library will be installed in your system. After installing the NumPy, if you want to utilize this NumPy, then you have to import that NumPy into your working directory. By using the import keyword, you can import the NumPy into your working directory. In this way, you can install the NumPy into your system, and you can utilize that NumPy by using the import statement. Now let me move forward and let me explain what is NumPy. NumPy is a numerical Python. It has some tools and techniques to solve the mathematical problems. Here, I can read this image by observing the features like their eyes, nose, mouth, beard, ear, and head. By using these features, I can read this image. But how can computer read this image? Computer can read this image by splitting entire image into different pixels. Here, the computer is dividing the entire image into different pixels. After dividing the entire image into different pixels, we need to assign a number to each and every pixel based on the colors. You may get doubts here. In the image, there are different colors might be there. Then how can I assign a number to that? Right. You know only 12 colors, but computer know 255 colors. For each and every color, there is a number we assigned. Based on that, we assign a number to each and every pixel. Suppose consider whenever the ladies doesn't have any kind of colors to do the rangoli, then they mix the color what they have. Suppose consider here the red filter, green filter, and blue filter are there. When I mix the red color with the green color, I will get a different color. When I mix the green color with the blue color, I will get a different color. If I increase the color quantity and decreasing the color quantity, then if I mix that colors, then I will get a different colors. In that way, we will get a 255 colors. For each and every color, there is a number we assigned. Based on that, we assign a number to each and every pixel. With that, the computer can read the image. Let me show you how can computer read this image and all in the numerical Python. Here to read the image, I'm using the pill library. From the pill library, I'm importing the image. Let me run it. From the image, I'm using the open function. Inside the open function, I'm passing the image path where that image is available in my directory. I'm passing that image and I'm storing the entire thing into the variable name image. And when I print the image, it will show you the image. See, this is the image is in my directory. This image is read by the computer. To know what kind of procedure is going on behind this image while reading, let me convert this image into the array. To convert that, I'm importing the numpy. I have taken the alias name for that. I am taking the alias name for that as a np. Whatever the alias name you have taken, you have to use any kind of function from the numpy library by using that alias name itself. You don't have the permission to use this name when you have taken the alias name. If you don't have any kind of alias name, then directly you can use this name itself. But when you take the alias name, you don't have the permission to take this name. Whatever the alias name you have taken, you have to utilize that one. Here from this NP, I'm taking the array function. Through the array function, I'm passing the image, and again I'm storing that into the image variable name. When I print the image variable name, it will give you the array. See, it is giving the array. Like by using these numbers, it is reading the image. Here you may get doubt here. List indicates with a square bracket itself, and array also indicated with a square brackets. Then what is the difference between the list and NumPy? Let me tell you the advantages of NumPy or list, then you will understand the difference between NumPy and the list. Alright, let me open the slides and let me move forward. Here, list takes more time to execute the program. When you compare that with the NumPy, NumPy takes very less time to execute the program. NumPy executes the program very fast when you compare that with a list. But list takes more time, it is a bit slow. And list occupies more memory in our memory. And the NumPy occupies very less memory when you compare that with a list. Let me show you the proofs how NumPy taking more time to execute, how NumPy taking more space in our memory. Let me show you the here I'm going to show you the proof for list occupies more space than NumPy. Here I'm creating a list. I'm storing that list into the separate variable name, that is X. I want to check what kind of data type it is, so that is the reason I'm passing this variable name through the type function. When I print that, it will give you the data type. Let me execute this one. See, it is showing that it is a list data type. So if you want to know how much memory space is occupied by the list, then you have to import the sys module. From the sys module, use the get size of function. Through the get size of function, pass the variable name, in which variable name you have stored your data. Right. Let me execute this one. See, it is giving the results as byte 104 bytes occupied by the list. List occupies 104 bytes to store this list. Right. And let me show you the same thing with the NumPy. I'm importing the NumPy library, and from the NumPy library, I'm taking the array function. Through the array function, I'm passing the same list. Previously, whatever the list we have taken, I'm passing the same list. And it will be stored into the variable name y. When you check what kind of data type it is, just pass that through the type function, then it will give you what kind of data type it is. Let me execute this one. See, here it is showing the data type as numpy.nd array. That means n dimensional array. NumPy n dimensional array. If you want to know how much memory space is occupied by the array, then use the n bytes. Here the variable name is y. Use that variable name and you type n bytes and click on execute. Then it will show you how many bytes it's occupied in the memory space. It is showing that 24 bytes of memory is occupied by the NumPy and 104 bytes is occupied by the list. See, list occupies more space than NumPy. Here NumPy is occupying only 24 bytes. And let me show you one more proof for list takes more time to execute than NumPy. Here to calculate the time, we need to import the time module. From the time module, take the time function and store that into the separate variable name, that is start. Here the time will be calculated, the time start here, and you need to calculate the end of the time. So I'm subtracting the starting time from this time. I'm storing that into the separate variable name, that is end. And in between this starting time and ending time, place your logic. Then it will be execute and it will give you the time, how much time it is taken to execute that logic. Here I have taken a range function, and in the range function I have taken the range as 0 to 1000. I store that range into the variable name x. And in the same way, I have taken one more range function with the range 0 to 1000. I store that into the variable name y. Now I am going to take the summation of x and y, whatever the elements I will get, I am going to take the summation of that. Here I am passing this variable name x and variable name y through the zip function, and when I iterate that, those values will be combined and will be assigned to the variable name I. Now I am going to take the summation of that, and when I print the end time, it will give you how much time it is taken to execute the logic. Now let me execute this one. You can observe how much time it is taken. See here, it is taken the time to execute the logic 0.08 seconds. Now let me show you the same thing with the numpy as well. To calculate the starting time, I have used the time.time and store that into the variable name start, and I have taken the ending time as well. I subtracted the starting time from the ending time, so I'm storing that into the variable name end. In between this starting time and the ending time, I'm specifying my logic. Here I have taken the arange function. How the range function will work in a Python. In the same way, this arange function will work. Arange means array range. I am taking the range as 0 to 1000. The arange, I am storing that into the separate variable name, that is x. And again, I have taken one more arange function with the range 0 to 1000. I am storing that into the variable name y. Now I am going to take the summation of the values from the x and y. Now I want to check how much time it is taken to execute that. Let me run it and see, it has taken the time as 0.002 seconds, but the list has taken 0.08 seconds. So there is a variation between the list and numpy. List takes more time to execute and numpy takes very less time when you compare that with a list, right? Now come to our slides and let me move forward. Let me explain about the array attributes. Here attribute is nothing but it will give you the information about the array. What is the shape of the array, what kind of dimension it has, and what is the size of that array. These kinds of information it will give you. That information you can get by the attribute itself. Come to the one-dimensional array and two-dimensional array and three-dimensional array. Let me explain what is one-dimensional, what is two-dimensional, and what is three-dimensional. Whenever you find the values plotted in only the x direction or only the y direction or only in the z direction, then we call that as a one-dimensional array. And the shape of the one-dimensional array is 1 by 4. That means only one row is there and 4 columns are there. And come to the second two-dimensional array. Whenever you find the values plotted in the x direction and the z direction or y direction or z direction, either the two direction, if you find the values, then we call that as a two-dimensional array. Here the shape of the two-dimensional array is a 2 by 3. And come to the three-dimensional array. The three-dimensional array, whenever you find the values are plotted in a x direction and y direction and the z direction, then we call that as a three-dimensional array. The shape of the three-dimensional array is 4 by 3 by 2. That means 4 rows and 3 columns and 2 rows in the z direction. And whenever you want to check for the size of the array, then use the size by taking the variable name. Then it will give you how many number of elements are there. Here the 3 number of elements are there in that array. And if you use the item size, then it will give you how much space is occupied by each and every element. Here each and every element occupied 8 bytes of memory. When you want to know how much memory space is occupied by the entire array, then use the n bytes. It will give you how much memory space is occupied by the entire list. When you multiply this size with the item size, then you will get the number of bytes. Right. Let me show you array attributes in the Jupyter Notebook. Previously I shown you one image. Same image I am taking and I am converting that into the array. I am going to display that. Let me execute that one. Yes. And if you want to see what is the shape of that array, then use the shape. Then it will give you how many number of rows are there, how many number of columns are there, and how many number of rows are there in the z direction. Here 324 rows and 359 columns and 3 filters are there. Professionally we call this as a filters. And if you want to check for the size of the array, then use the size, then you will get the number of elements in that array. See, here this number of elements are there, 3,48,948 elements are there in that array. If you multiply the shape of the array, then you will get this size of the array. See, let me execute this one. I'm getting the same number, whatever the number I got for the size, same number I got. And if you want to check the dimension of the array, then use the ending, then it will give you how many number of dimensions are there. Let me execute this one. See, it is giving that it has a 3-dimensional array. See, in the array, in the end of the array and in the beginning of the array, you can observe there are 3 square brackets are there. How many square brackets are there in the end of the array or in the beginning of the array? Based on that, we can tell how much dimensions it has. It has 3 dimensions. So we can tell it is a 3-dimensional array. Right. Now let me move forward. Let me explain about how to construct an array. Array can be constructed by 2 methods, by using the array function and by using the arange function. Right. Let me show you in the Jupyter notebook itself. Here I have imported the numpy. I have taken the alias name for that as empty. I am taking the array function from the numpy. I am passing a list through that. I am storing that into the separate variable name, that is x. When I print that x, it will be converted into the array. Yes, it is converted into the array. You can construct the array by using the array function as well. There is one more method to construct the array, that is arange. Just by specifying the range in the arange function, then the array will be converted. Array can be constructed. Let me execute this one. See, array is constructed by using the range of the values. And if you want to know what is the size of the array, then use the size. See, the size of the array is 100. Now I want to reshape that array with a number of rows and the number of columns, and use the reshape function by taking the variable name, in which variable name you have stored that store your data. Use that variable name and use the reshape function, and inside the reshape function, whatever the shape you specified, if you multiply that shape, that number should become as 100. Then only it will be successfully reshaped. Otherwise it won't reshape. Let me execute this one. See, the array is reshaped successfully. 25 rows are there and 4 columns are there. See, 4 columns are there and 25 rows are there. Right. Now let me explain about the indexing. Let me tell you about the NumPy operations. The NumPy operations are filtering, array manipulation, statistical models, arithmetic operations, and the aggregations. Let me explain about each of the operation one by one. Firstly, let me explain about the filter. If you want to filter the element, then you need to use the indexing and slicing. Here, you have to construct an array, store that array into a separate variable name, and use the square brackets. Inside the square brackets, use a comma separator. Left side of the comma is for rows and right side of the comma is for the columns. Whenever you specify any kind of indexing position or the slicing, then the elements will be retrieved from the array. Here, this is the 0th indexing position, first indexing position, second indexing position, third indexing position, fourth indexing position, and fifth indexing position in the rows. And in the same way, in the columns as well, 0th indexing position, first indexing position, second indexing position, third indexing position, fourth indexing position, and fifth indexing position. Right. Whenever you want to retrieve the elements, then specify the indexing position in the rows, and specify the indexing position in the columns as well. Then the elements will be retrieved. You can filter any kind of elements. See here, I specified the indexing position as 0. So only it will focus on 0th indexing position. In the columns, I specified the slicing from 3 to 5, it will be considered or consider the indexing position. Always it won't consider the upper bound. Here the lower bound is a 3 and upper bound is a 5. Always upper bound won't be considered. If you subtract 1 from the upper bound, then whatever the results you will get till to that index, it will consider the values. So 5 minus 1 is a 4. So third index and fourth index will be considered. So in the zeroth row, at the third indexing and fourth indexing of the column, we have the values as 3 and 4. So you will get that element as your results. And if you specify 4 colon and in the row and 4 colon in the column as well, then it will consider the values from fourth indexing onwards in the rows and the columns as well. Then it will give you the results whatever the elements are there. Here the elements are 28, 29, 34, 35 are there. These elements are our results. And if you specify just the column, then it will consider all of the rows, but in the column just I specified the indexing position as 2. So all the rows will be considered, only the second indexing position will be considered. So in the second indexing position in the all rows, the elements are 2, 8, 14, 20, 26, 32 elements are there. These elements are our results with this code, and we can use the range in the rows and the columns as well by specifying the slicing itself. Here this is the lower bound and this is the upper bound and this is the step. And in the columns as well, this is the lower bound and this is the upper bound and this is the step. Here it will consider the indexing position from the 2 and there is a step 2. So 2 plus 2, 4 will come. So next it will consider the fourth index. Again 4 plus 2, 6 will come. 6 indexing position will be considered till to the end of the array. And in the same way in the columns as well, I haven't specified the lower bound, so it will consider the indexing position from the beginning. And I haven't specified the upper bound as well. It will consider all the indexing positions in the columns as well with a step 2. First it will consider 0th indexing position and it will add the 2 for that. 0 plus 2, 2 will come. So 0th indexing position it will consider and second indexing position also will be considered. And 2 plus 2, 4 will come. Fourth indexing will consider. Whatever the elements are there at that positions, those elements are our results. Here the elements are 12, 14, 16, 24, 26, 28. These elements are available by using this code. So these elements are filtered from the indexing and slicing. Let me show you about the indexing and slicing in the Jupyter notebook. Yes, the indexing and slicing. Here I told you how to specify indexing position at the slicing in the rows and the columns, then you will get the elements, right? Let me execute. See, the elements are getting. And in the same way, if you can use the slicing and indexing in the rows position and the columns position as well, then you will get the elements. See, I got the elements and I explained about this one. You can specify the range as well by using the slicing itself with a step value. You can get the results. See, I got the elements. You want only the specific element, only the specifically only one element, then use the flat and specify the indexing position, then that element only will be retrieved, right? Only the element 42 is retrieved because in the 42 indexing position, element 42 is there. Now let me open the slides and let me move forward. Let me explain about the data types. NumPy has special kind of data types. The integer data type is there and complex data type is there and float data type is there. The integer data type has types categorized into few more types, the integer 8 and integer 16 and integer 32 and integer 64, and in the complex 64 and complex 128, and in the float 16 and float 32 and float 64. These data types are categorized based on the specific range. You don't need to worry about the specific range, but you need to know how to utilize that data types from the NumPy. Let me show you how to utilize these data types from the NumPy. Here I have created a array by the arange function with the range as 0 to 100 with a step 5. You can specify the data type as integer. Directly it will consider it is a integer 64 data type. Let me execute this one. See, it is successfully executing. But whenever you want to use the data type as specifically integer 32 or integer 8 or integer 64, then that time if you specify the data type like this, it will give you the error. Let me execute this one. See, it is giving the data error. Name integer 32 is not defined. Whenever you want to use the data types like this, then definitely you have to utilize this kind of data type from the numpy itself. np.32. If you specify the data type like this, then only the data type will give you the perfect results. See, it is giving the perfect results. Now let me open the slides and let me move forward. Let me explain about the array manipulations. If you want to add the elements, or if you want to delete the elements, if you want to insert the elements in the array, then you can with array manipulation operations. Let me show you the array manipulation operations in the Jupyter notebook. Here, the array manipulations are over. Here I created a array by using the arange function. In the arange function, I specify the range as 0 to 100 with a step 5. Now I'm going to execute this one. See, the elements are executed. The number of elements are 20 are there. Now I'm going to reshape that array with a multiples of that 20 is 5 and 4. So with that shape I'm going to execute that one. See, the array is constructed successfully. If you want to add the elements, then use the append function, and in which array you want to add the elements, specify that array and specify the elements. In which way you want to add the elements, either in a row wise or either in a column wise, how you want to add the elements. So you have to specify that as well with the axis. If you specify the axis is equal to 0, then the elements will be added in the row wise. If you specify the axis is equal to 1, then the elements will be added in the column wise. Let me execute this one. See, the elements are added at the end of the array in the row wise. If you specify the axis is equal to 1, the element will be added into the column wise. See, the element is added in the end of the array in the column wise. If you want to insert the values, instead of using the append function, when you use the append function, the elements will be added in the end of the array. If you use the insert function, then the elements will be added at the specific indexing position. Use the insert function and specify in which array you want to insert the element, and specify the indexing position and specify the elements, and specify the axis parameter in which way you want to insert, either in a row wise or either in a column wise. Here I am going to insert the elements in a row wise, so that is the reason I specified the axis is equal to 0. Let me execute this one. See, the elements are added at the second indexing position in the row wise. When I execute this insert with the axis 1, the elements will be added in the column wise. See, the elements are inserted in the column wise. When you use the resize function, then the array will be reconstructed with your required shape. Whatever the shape you specified, with that shape it will be reconstructed. Whatever the elements are there, those elements will be repeated, and with that elements it will be construct an array. Let me execute this one. See, the array is constructed with the repeated elements. And if you want to delete the elements, then use the delete function, and inside the delete function specify array in which array you want to delete the elements, and specify the indexing position in which way you want to delete the element, specify that indexing position, and specify the axis, either you want to delete the elements in the row wise or column wise, specify that. And let me execute this one. See, the elements are deleted. And if you want to concatenate the elements, use the concatenate function, and through the concatenate function specify the arrays and specify the axis, then the elements will be concatenated in the row wise. See, the elements are concatenated. If you use the axis is equal to 1, then the elements are concatenated in the column wise. See, the elements are concatenated into the column wise. And let me execute this one. I'm going to reshape the array. Here it is a two-dimensional array, and when you want to get it to a one-dimensional array, then use the flatten function. This flatten function will convert the two-dimensional array or three-dimensional array into a one-dimensional array. Let me execute this one. See, all the array is converted into the one-dimensional array. Now let me open the slides and let me move forward. Let me explain about the mathematical operations. If you want to add the two arrays, if you want to subtract the two arrays, then if you want to multiply or divide the two arrays, then you can use the add function, subtract function, multiply function, and divide function. Let me show you those operations in the Jupyter notebook itself. Here I created a array with the 2 dimensions and I store that array into the variable name x. And I have created one more array. I store that array into the variable name y with the 2 dimension itself. Let me execute this one and you can see the shape. This is a first array is a 2 by 4 dimensions of the array, and second array is a 1 by 4 dimensions of the array. Whenever you want to add any kind of element, dimension is not matter, but columns should be matched. How many columns are there in a first array? Same number of columns should be in second array. See, I'm going to print by adding those arrays. See, successfully it has given the results. Here I created one more array with a 1 dimension, and here I created one more array with a 2 dimension. I store that into the variable names x and y. I'm going to add those arrays by using the add function. Add of x and y, then the elements will be added. See, the elements are successfully added because it is a one dimensional array, it is a 2 dimensional array, but number of elements are matched, number of columns are matched, so it is successfully executing. Now come to the slides and let me move forward. Let me explain about the statistical operations. The statistical operations are minimum value, maximum value, summing value, and square root, exponential, log, variance, standard deviation, and rent, floor, sale. These are the statistical operations. Let me show you about these statistical operations in the Jupyter notebook itself. Here, if you want to round up a value, then use the floor function. Here, whatever the value you are passing through the floor function, if that value is above the decimal point 5 or below the 0.5 decimal value, it will be round up the value to a lower value. Let me execute this one. This value is below the 0.5 decimal value, even though it will be converted into the lower value. It is round up the value to the lower value. And when you pass the 1.8, this value is above the 0.5 decimal value. So whenever you want to round up the value, if you use the floor, it will be always round up the value to a minimum value. When you pass the values through the sale function, those will be round up the value to the upper value. Either the decimal value is above the 5 or below the 5, it doesn't matter, it will always round up the value to the maximum values. See, those values are round up to the maximum value. And when you pass the values through the rent function, then the values will be round up to the lower value and higher value based on the 0.5 decimal value. If the value is below the 0.5 decimal value, it will be round up the value to the lower value. Otherwise, it will be round up the value to the maximum value itself. Slides, and let me move forward. Thank you guys. Thank you for spending much of time with me. I would like to meet you all once again in my next webinar with lots of interesting facts and information for your career. Thank you once again.